This is tape 1, side A of the interview with Barbara Stimler on the 18th of November 1988 with Jennifer Wingate.
My name is Barbara Stimler, nie Krakowska. I was born in Aleksandrow Kujawaski, which is Pomorn, 5th of February 1927. I was an only child of Sarah and Jakub Krakowski. I'm going off. So when I speak about my parents, I get that. Being an only child, my father wanted to give me everything, which he did. I was sent to school, to, not a school, how do you call it? A kindergarten, yes, a kindergarten. When I was 4 years old, where nuns were the teachers. From there, that was the only private school in Aleksandrow. I was actually the only Jewish child there. From there, start my elementary schooling as well, where I also was an only child, a Jewish child there. The nuns were lovely to me. When it comes to prayers, they told me I should ask my mother to teach me the prayer of my religion, which I did. While they were praying their religion, I was in myself praying my own. There I was for 5 or 6 years, I don't remember. Then I had an exam to go into, how you call it, grammar school here, which was a high school in England, and it was Hebrew school. My father was a little bit worried I should not get mixed up with a Gentile, I suppose.
You said in England?
No, in Poland.
I thought you said, it was called in England. Called grammar
school. School in England, yes, which we called a grammar school in England. I went to this high school in Poland, yes. Which was a Hebrew school.
Where was that?
In the town called Włocławek. I had to travel there every day. I was commuter. And I had to get up very early. The journey took about an hour. And for the winter, my parents made arrangements for me to stay with the family, because the winters were very bad in Poland, but I didn't like it. And the following year, I didn't want to stay anymore. But then I became ill, and I had to leave the school. Then the war broke out, which was 1939. Am I going too fast with my childhood?
Well, should I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
I'd love to know, how did you travel from school, from home to school?
By train.
Yes.
By train. And there, the train was about, we had lessons. We had to be 8 o'clock at school, not like here, 9, 8 o'clock. And we were there till 1 or 2 o'clock. One day was till 1 o'clock and one day till 2 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And when the trains we used to catch about 3 o'clock, so we were allowed to stay at school and do our lessons. And we got home till about 4 to Aleksandrow. At home I was about 4:15, 4:30, something like that. Sometimes it was lovely because my cousin, who was living not far from Włocławek. He used to meet me there and took me to a patisserie and bought me some cakes. Why I'm mentioning this cousin? Because he also was in Auschwitz, and he was alive. I mean, he died only 2 months ago in Israel. But the family were very good to us, which I think I will mention them later.
Right. What I would also like to ask you is what you remember of your early family life before you went to school. Tell me about your brothers and sisters.
I didn't. I said I was an only child. My mother's family, my mother had 3 sisters and 2 brothers. One brother had 5 sons. They all perished. The whole family is perished. I was the only one who is alive. My mother's family only, as my second cousin, who is a doctor, is in America. He also went through the camps. He lives in Syracuse. And my father's family was in England, mostly. One brother was living in a town called Lubraniec, and 2 brothers were living in Paris. One of the brothers with the whole family in France was killed, and one of them with a family, I don't know how, but they were alive. If they were hidden by the French people, I just don't know. They emigrated soon after the war to Canada, and that's where they were living with my cousins. There were 3 cousins, and my uncle and auntie.
When did they leave Poland?
They didn't. They were in France.
Yes, but...
oh, I don't know.
What, yeah.
This I don't know.
Before
Oh,
the war.
many years before the
I
war.
see.
Many years before the war. I didn't know them in Poland at all. No, that uncle who was killed, I did not know him at all. Only, also, 2 brothers of my father's and a sister and his parents were living in London. And I remembered the addresses like NW10 or W11. I did not remember which do they belong to, or my grandparents, or my auntie, or my uncle. So after the war, should I talk about it now? Yes? Or later?
No, we'll get to after the war.
I think so.
Yes.
I think so. And as I say, my childhood, mostly I was living in Aleksandrow, which was not far from Ciechocinek, and it was a spa, which during my holidays we used to go there, or we used to take a flat in a village, and that's where we used to spend the summer holidays. My father, we had a shop, was selling textile materials.
This was in Aleksandrow?
That was in Aleksandrow. And I had quite a lot of friends which were Christians, being in a school where I was only one Jewish child. They were very, very kind to me. Of course, the anti-Semitism started, and they used to put pickets in front of the Jewish shops. They used to wait near the trains where the Jewish boys were coming from somewhere, and they used to beat them up. I was in a way very, very lucky, because my father was rather a tough man, and nobody there would touch me. I had once experience being in a small town when the summer was there. when you closed the shop, they used to sit outside the shop, like. And my father happened to drink tea, which was in a glass, so you didn't drink tea in a cup. I was already asleep. I did not know nothing about it. And a drunken Pole came to him, and he said to him, which my mother told me afterwards, put his hand on his shoulder, and you are a good Jew. And then my father was holding this drink, and he started to abuse him. So my father took the glass, put on his palm the glass, and put into his eye, and left him in the gutter, and closed the shutters and went to sleep. And nobody would touch us. They never put any pickets in front of us. You see, you had to be strong, while the Jewish people before the war were very afraid. I mean, they were throwing stones at them, not at me.
Were there many Jewish people in your town?
I don't know, not many. It was only a small town.
It was a small town.
It was
larger than a village.
Oh yes, it was not a village. We had cinemas and all this, so you can't call it a village.
Could you tell me when you were born?
5th of February, 1927.
So you were going to school then in the early 30s?
Oh yes.
Yes.
Oh yes.
30s.
Well, I went to this kindergarten first, but I was quite a clever girl,
Yes.
and they were pushing me from one year to another,
I see. So
passing quicker, because being my age, I was only 1 year in the high school, and I got ill, and the war broke out.
Yes, I'd like to ask you a bit more about
Yes.
your school days.
Yes, yes.
You say that you were one Jewish girl among
Oh, the
non-Jewish
Polish, yes,
girls,
yes,
and later on
yes,
girls
I can-
and boys.
yes.
So when did you first have feelings of anti-Semitism? You must have some experience.
I had this feeling already, because when I had to leave, let's say they made the religion a last lesson or the first lesson. So I had to come either 9 o'clock to school or left 1 hour earlier. And I was afraid some of them should know that I was Jewish. Oh, I had this feeling. Oh, I had. Though they were very kind to me. But I had this feeling because it was also a high school in our town, which was only for boys. And before they went to this high school, these boys used to come to our school first to have the elementary, because the high
Until the age of 11?
Oh no. In this high school, yes, about 11,
Yes.
11, 12, yes. And what happened? Where the male school was, the high school, they were priests teaching, only priests. They were not Jewish children there at all. Maybe one boy from our town, but they would not accept anybody there. They mostly had to go out of Aleksandrow or to go to a strictly Hebrew Jewish high school. And I did have this feeling, because I was just afraid these boys should not know that I'm Jewish. I remember this very distinctly.
What did you feel might happen if they hadn't known?
They would abuse me. They would call me names.
Yes.
But maybe being only one and I was good at sports and I was good in the class, maybe they would have this respect and they would not do so. But I was still afraid.
But you had experience then of...
Not on my, I only felt, because I know how they were behaving themselves towards other Jewish people.
You had seen things
Oh
happen.
yes,
What
oh
had you
yeah.
seen?
As I said, they were having pickets and they were beating up.
Yes.
And don't forget, I didn't go out late because you were very sheltered.
You saw people being beaten up.
Not just personally myself, because they were not doing so much during the day, but they were doing in the evenings. Let's say we were already in bed and somebody came, one of my cousins came running and said to my father, "Uncle, will you come?" Because one of my cousins were also just coming from another town and they knew that the Polish boys were standing and waiting there to beat them up. So my father quickly dressed him. Boy, I told you they were afraid of my father because he just didn't care. He was just smashing them up. That was the only one thing that I was not afraid so much of them. But the feeling, after all, is there.
Yes,
Being Jewish, you see. But don't forget, we are very sheltered. And by 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I was in bed,
Yes.
you see. And my father wouldn't even want me to know all these troubles, what was going on.
But tell me, were you a religious household?
My father was not, my mother was. So we kept very Jewish home, being...
Shabbat?
Oh, yes, yes. The candles were there, but my father wouldn't make... I mean, he would make a kiddush, but he would not make any...
Bench.
No.
What about Shabbat? Did you keep Shabbat?
Oh, yes, the shop
Yes.
was closed, which... which I had also another experience. I had to go to school on Saturday because it was this Polish school, which I told you the nuns were teaching. And some of the Jewish people were not so happy about it, you see. But as I say, we have been very... My mother was quite Orthodox, but not my father, and schooling by my father came first. My father left home when he was 21 and went to Russia and joined the Russian army, just for the simple reason because he liked the Russian language. Yes, when he was 30, he came back. Oh, when the revolution broke up,
Yes.
he ran. He came back, and when we come back, my grandparents were just making themselves ready to go to England. And my uncle, the oldest brother, was already in England, and he was trying to bring over the family to England slowly. Now, the two brothers were in Poland. During the coronation, which was George VI, my aunt wanted my father to come himself to England for the coronation. But my father said either we all come or not at all, so we didn't. And that's how it was. We were left in Poland. Then to Russia, which my father would have the opportunity to go to. He didn't want to go because he saw what the Bolsheviks were doing while he was running away. And he said he will never take his wife and his child to Russia, to the Bolsheviks.
Why did you say he had the opportunity to go to Russia?
Because anybody could run.
Oh,
You see, when the war broke out, from the beginning, though, we were hit one of the first ones. In 1931, the war broke out. We hid ourselves from the bombs. And while we were, then we come back after a few days, because, as I said, I was living not far from the German borders, and we were one of the first ones. The war broke out on the 10th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, but about 7 o'clock they were bombing us already. So we got all scared. We didn't know what it was all about. My father went over the road and wanted to see where the bomb is falling. We just did not know.
You didn't know war had been declared until that moment?
No, we didn't. And the war was declared 10 o'clock in the morning, and they already started bombing us before, about 7 o'clock in the morning. So we went to a village, and we come back from the village.
A different village?
Yes. Where I was living was a town, but we went to a village.
To get away
from the bombs.
Yes.
We come back. I don't know what happened to my father, but when they were declaring when the siren started to go off, that the planes are coming, we went to the cellar because practically every house in Poland had a cellar. And my father was not with us. And the corner of our house was bombed. The bomb, and the whole place went up. But it just hit the corner. And the next door house was smashed. And we were all black and all shattered. All the windows were shattered. So everything was broken. And when we come out after the planes were left, when we come out to the streets, they said, that my father got killed. But it was not. He just happened to be somewhere and went also to a cellar. Anyway. Did you want to know the address where I used to live in Poland? Yes, it's 25 Piłsudski.
I'll ask you the spelling
Yes.
later. You can tell me later.
Okay, because I have to write down before I spell it. And how was it?
Do you think?
I don't remember if we went. Oh yes, now I remember. Yes, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you. I just would like to ask you a few more
questions about my childhood.
Yes,
yes, please do.
Yes, but your social life really.
It was not much.
Did your parents entertain much?
Oh yes, yes.
You haven't spoken much about your mother's family.
What I say is, sometimes during summer I used to go also, which was in a smaller town than ours. It's more like a village. My mother's sister was, the older sister was living, which she was married to widower, and he had 3 sons, and she had also 3 children with my uncle. And there were 2 girls and a boy. And when I went after they all got, nobody's alive after the war. When I went there, because soon after the war, I did go to Poland. I don't want to repeat myself, you see, and I thought I would wait after the war. When it happened after the war, I would like to tell you.
Yes.
So I leave that, but
Yes.
my mother's, another mother, my mother's parents were living also in the small town which was called Służewo.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother I did not know because she died quite young, but my grandfather used to come for every weekend to our place, to Aleksandrow. He was a very religious man. He used to wear the yarmulka and all this. Can you just excuse me for a second? My mother's youngest sister, she was not married, and she used to live with her father. And one weekend he came, and he became very ill, and unfortunately he died. And as you know, in Poland, the children were not allowed to stay with the dead or whatever, and I was sent to friends. And I don't remember much about that. Only I remember one thing, that on the dying bed he asked my father to look after the youngest sister of my mother's, and she stayed with us. So she was to me like a second mother, more than a mother. She was fantastic to me. She was really lovely. My mother became once very, very ill, and but she got through it, and
Your aunt helped nurse her, did she?
Oh yes. She was staying with us. She also had a house in the town we were living. She had, because my grandparents had a house in Służewo where they were living in that town, and that was sold, and it was left to my auntie, the money, and they bought a house for her in Aleksandrow, but she stayed with us. And after a few years, couple of years, I don't remember exactly, she met this man, or she was introduced. As you know, they used to introduce to each other people. And they sold this house, which was her dowry. And she was living also in the same town as my father's brother, Shio. His name was Shio. And so quite often we used to go there. When I went to, you had to go through Włocławek, from Aleksandrów to Włocławek, and from there you had to take a little train to Lubraniec. And my uncle, Shio, had 2 sons and a daughter. They were also quite comfortable. And we used to see each other quite often as well. Then my father was born in Brześć Kujawski. It was all the area of Włocławek. Lubraniec, Brześć Kujawski was not far from Włocławek. In Brześć Kujawski, my father's auntie lived. Their name was Kurtzman. This is the family I was talking about that my cousin used to meet me from school and entertain me a little bit. Then in Aleksandrów Kujawski, my mother's oldest brother was living with 5 sons. And another brother of my mother's was living, which he was younger than my mother, in Radziejów. And my mother's sister, the oldest sister, was living, I can't remember the name of the town. She had only 1 son as well. And unfortunately, all of them are gone. Nobody is left. I had at school quite a lot of friends. When it was birthday parties, we used to go to each other. Then after school, I used to go to some friends to do the homework together, or they come to me. For the Hebrew, for the Jewish religion, I had to have a private tutor. The school I was talking about, where the nuns were teaching, it was also a private school, where we had to pay for it. And I had a Jewish teacher teaching me Hebrew and the Jewish religion. My friends were practically the aristocracy of Aleksandrów. What I mean is the daughters of mostly professional people, and one daughter of a mayor of Aleksandrów. Now, we had only 1 synagogue in town, very old one, a lovely synagogue. My parents, as I say, were not very religious, but Yom Kippur Rosh Hashanah, and Sukkot, we used to go to the synagogue. Actually, my parents, when they went on Yom Kippur to the synagogue, they never come back. They stayed there all day long. But I, as a child, didn't fast, only till 1 o'clock. I come home, and then my friends used to come and dress up in my mother's clothes.
Your Jewish friends?
Yes. My mother's clothes and my mother's shoes, which were miles too big, and we used to put lipstick on. It is, it's coming back to me, because that was the only opportunity we could dress ourselves up, knowing that our parents are all day long in the shul, and we will not be told off. And what shall I say about my childhood more? I so little remember. I had my own bike, which I used to ride, and I was the apple of his eye, my father's eye. He absolutely adored me, and he wanted me to do I used to have also piano lessons, and in this private school we used to have German lessons and French lessons.
That was until...
Before the war, before the war I'm talking about.
Yes, how old were you?
Till 11.
Until 11?
Oh, yeah.
French and German?
Oh, yes,
So
because it was a
that?
private school.
I see.
Yes, but German I do understand and speak a little bit, but French is just 1 year before the war broke, before I left the school. Only 1 year we learned the languages. They were preparing us to go to the high school, you see.
So you say that you were at school with non-Jewish girls.
Only no.
Where did your Jewish friends come from? And did they not think it odd that
No,
you
we
went to
did.
non-Jewish
Yes,
school?
they did. But no. I was, how shall I explain to you? I was the Kes Whiskers. You see, because going to this school, and
the best
yes,
school?
Yes. It was the only private school in town. Otherwise, it's only an ordinary elementary.
And you went because you...
Because my father wanted me to. First of all, we never spoke Jewish. They never spoke Jewish to me, in case I would lose the accent, the Polish accent. My father was very funny in this respect. What he was missing in his schooling, he was putting everything into me. Whatever he didn't have it, I have to have it. Personally, he nearly killed me. It is true.
Because you had to work so hard.
Hard. Yes, he nearly killed me.
But you say he had a textile shop.
Yes.
Where did he get his textiles from?
No, he brought money from when he came from Russia. We have been living in, our address was very good, and when he came to Russia, he swallowed diamonds and gold rubles. My mother had rings and earrings from the diamonds he swallowed. He was a very comfortable man actually in Russia. He owned houses because he left the army, and he stayed in Russia till the revolution broke out. He was 10 years in Russia.
Where did he live? Do you know, in Russia?
A town called Penza.
And why did he go? He went to...
He loved it. He just, yes, right. Yes, and language. A few brothers and sisters and parents were very, very religious. I suppose he was maybe, how can I explain, tied down.
And he went on his own?
On his own. He was 21. He
Where
just
was
left.
he born?
I presume in Brest Kujawski, yes. I have his birth certificate, not I have his birth certificate here somewhere, because I told you they wanted my father to come to England, and he sent his certificate. But then he thought, well, not my wife and my child. Excuse me, is the coffee? Excuse me. Anyway, and what can I used to belong also to, it's coming back, Jewish organization, Zionist organization, where that's where I met my Jewish, and that's what,
Yes.
you see, it's coming back to me. I don't remember the teacher we had, and she was teaching us Hebrew, and we used to have for Hanukkah or Purim, we had to have shows, little shows, and I remember I was dancing. I never had dancing lessons, and we had little like sketches, and that's how I got really more friendly with the Jewish children, with Jewish girls. And I just was thought
Did you
of.
tend to speak Polish together?
Oh yes,
Yes.
only Polish. We
Yes.
spoke only
But your
Polish.
these
My
Jewish
friends
girls
also
probably spoke
Polish.
Yiddish
Yeah, no,
together, did they?
no, not so much.
No.
No, they all try. They all try to speak Polish because when Polish was a language, a Slovakian language, it's like you would speak only German and Yiddish, you would lose the accent. The Polish accent, and that's what it was. I understood Jewish because my parents between themselves used to speak Jewish. Only to me they spoke Polish, and all my friends are speaking, they were speaking Polish.
Yes.
We were speaking Polish between each other, and they're all business people, children of business people or professional people, so they were all speaking Polish. Only among Polish poor Jewish people, that's where they spoke only Yiddish. And that's where the trouble started mostly, you see.
But tell me, when you were with your Jewish friends,
Yes.
did you feel differently from the way you felt with
Of
your
course you
non-Jewish
do,
friends?
of course. You see, when I was going to the elementary school, being mostly with the with the Polish girls, I didn't feel so much. I didn't understand then, because I started the nursery when I was 5. You don't understand these things yet. So, let's say it was also when I was older, when they said when Passover came, they wouldn't let the Polish children out because they used to say that the Jewish people will catch them and kill them for blood. Well,
You actually heard that?
oh yes, plenty. And I know that my friends were stoned and all this. I mean, throwing stones at, not stoned to death, but throwing stones at. And this I know for the fact. And
Did you hear these rumours at your non-Jewish school?
No.
Among your
No.
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 Your
No.
non-Jewish friends were nice to you?
Never. Oh yes, very nice to me. As I told you, I was good in sports and I was good in lessons, and but it was a little bit. I explained to you. We used to have shows every Christmas, and they used to do the shows in this male high school where the priests were teaching. They had a big theater there, and the nuns were used to take always before Christmas this hall, and we used to the theater hall, and we used to have shows. Now, shows for Christmas is mostly with Jesus and Mary, but they used to be very, very nice. One year I had a sketch with another boy, which he didn't remember his lines, and I had to tell him on the stage what he should say, where everybody was laughing. And after the show, that year after the show, the priest, which was like not a bishop, but he was the director of the high school, came over to my mother and he said, "What a lovely and clever daughter you have." Yes. And he knew I was Jewish. I'm sure he knew. Then one year, the last year when I left the school, there were 4 seasons in this show, and I was the summer, the queen of summer. which I had the poppies and how do you call the flowers which are blue? I also live. They grow in corn.
Cornflowers.
Cornflowers, and what I wanted to say, they really were very careful how they dealt with me, not to be direct when they were Jesus or something like that. You see what I mean? Yes. But I had a certain experience, I must say. I remind myself now. Then when they go to the communion, when they were, I don't remember how old, 8 or 9 they were, to go to the Holy Communion.
When they're confirmed?
Yes. And they have to have white dresses.
Yes.
And they go to the priest and he listens to them. I don't know what it is, but I had to have a white dress because my friends had white dresses. And
when you say you had to?
I had to have, because they were all having white dresses, and I had to have a
The
white...
school said you had to?
No. I in myself.
You insisted?
Yes. Oh. Yes. It's my best dress to have a white dress, because they all had white dresses. You see, you can be very easy influenced. Yes. I went once with my friends to the church, my close friend. You see, you can be so easy influenced, and during the Easter time, as they do Christmas time, the trees, Easter time they used to make a table with all the food. They used to kill a pig and all the food, they put it on beautiful dressed up, and the priest used to come to every house and put the holy water in, and used to give little cards with the holy cards, like with the Jesus. And one year I had to be there with my friend, and I also had this water sprinkled, and because I didn't understand that, you see, till I was older, and then it hit me.
But it's harmless.
It was harmless, really, because, and that's maybe my father saw it, and he thought I have to go to be among Jewish children, and send me to the high school, which was traveling from our town, and go to the Hebrew school.
You went to the Hebrew
Oh yes, high school, yes. Only 1 year because the war broke out. Where from after half a year we start to learn English, because Palestine was a British colony. And that's why when I come to England I knew the grammar, which was helping me quite well. And then we had to learn from half a year. We learned only we had Hebrew lessons, English, and Latin. So that started after a half a year I was in the school.
High school.
Yes.
What was the name of the place, the high school?
Is Moriah. Yeah. In Włocławek. And the Polish school had names, had letters. Niepokalanego poczęcia Najświętszej Marii Panny. I would have to write down for you, because it's very, very difficult. And you see, all showing that I was going to all these schools, and I had all this, and I had witnesses here. The man is dead now, but he knew me since I was a little girl. And they could confirm it, because the school after the war still existed, because I went after the war to the school and I saw them. And they said to me, the sisters, the nuns, they said to me, only night before we spoke about you. We looked at the albums, at the pictures. I don't know how stupid I was that I didn't ask them to make a copy and give me a picture from the school. How silly, isn't it? And a couple of sisters, 3 sisters were still there who were teaching me. And they were saying, is she alive? Night before I come.
When did you go?
Soon after the war, to see if anybody's alive. You know, it's on your conscience. So, but nobody was there. I went to that Służewo, to the town. I walked down there. It was only 4 kilometers or 5 kilometers from Aleksandrów. And I went there. Nobody was there, no Jewish people at all. And in Aleksandrow, the Burgermeister, I don't know how you call it, what is in English?
Mayor.
Not a mayor. The one who is in a town hall at the main...
Oh, the town clerk?
No, higher than clerk. Somebody who's above. Maybe it is called a mayor. And he called me and he asked me to stay and want to give me a job and all this. I wouldn't stay there. Nobody was alive. I went to my neighbors. One had our dining room, one had our bedroom, and paintings and all this. And no Jewish people. What could I stay there? So I went back to... Mind you, I'm going off already of the track now, so it's no good, is it? I went off the track. I'm starting talking already what's happening after the war.
Let's get back then to 1939. You've been in high school for a year.
Yes, and going to school, before in the war broke out September. In May, before the exams were starting. So he said, I wish the war would broke out and we wouldn't have to have these exams and all this stupid. Nobody realized. Nobody just, I did not know, I didn't enter my mind. I was a kid, it just, how could anybody imagine? No. How could anybody think that people can do such a terrible thing to another human being? It's just incredible. And then there was the holidays, because by us the holiday starts in June. You see here July, but by us we have 2 months holidays, end of June, July and August, and we start September, 1st of September, the school like here. But of course the war broke out. Now, it was just a normal life. They were talking about the war, but they said, oh gosh, Hitler has no chance, and Poland would never be taken, and all this. But what's happening in 1939, I can't remember very well.
Did you talk politics at home with your family?
My family was talking, but I didn't. What 12? No. What can you talk about? Was thinking about my exams.
Of course.
Well, to go to the next class, if I'm going to pass, to go to the next class, because we had to also, in Poland, you had to have at the end of the year exams if you are able to go to the next class. Yes. If not, they left you in the same class again.
It's the same here to a certain extent.
Not so much, They do push here, they go up and up, but it was a better method, you see. And
so you were saying before, the first you knew about the war was when the bomb dropped.
Oh no, they were talking about the war. They were talking about, yes, they were talking about the war, but we didn't know when it's going to break out.
Yes.
We did not know. And I don't remember, did we go to my uncle? No, we went to my uncle's after when the war broke out. Just as I say, just before the war, there were pickets everywhere, and but we see it was a strong communism among the Jewish people. Mostly, I would say, 80% young people belong to the Communist Party. And they were fighting as much as they could, the fascists, with the working class people. Because the working class people in Poland, they were quite poor. They lived practically from day to another, one day to another. Oh, it's coming back now. We had a maid living in, and then we lived in a different place. Then we moved to this 25 Piłsudski. I don't remember the other address, because we lived quite a long time. We lived already about 7 years in the 25 Piłsudski, so we didn't have any more a maid. And my auntie was married, and a woman used to come 3 times a day to clean after the meals and all this. The young woman, her name was Wanda, I remember. Wanda Żbikowski, that's right. And why I mentioned, because after the war I went to see her as well. And on her off day she used to take me to her place. And they used to live in one little room. And there were 5 of them and 2 beds. So they used to have straw put up in the beds. And for the night they used to take out the straw. And I suppose they slept on the floor. I don't know how they did, but they were so very, very clean. You could eat from the floor there. And they used to make some soup from, when the milk gets sour, you have cottage cheese, and then I know it's called servatka, but I don't know how it's called in English. And they used to make a soup out of it with a potato, and I used to love it. And at home I wouldn't eat. When my mother used to make chicken, I would like to have mincemeat. When she used to make mincemeat, I would like to have it. I was a very bad eater. Terrible, terrible. You know, being one child, it was very, very difficult for my parents. But anyway, I know my mother couldn't have any more children. She had a little boy, and it was born still, and then she didn't have any more children. I heard her talking to a friend of her or a neighbor, because things like that were not discussed. Discussed among children. It was, I mean, I never knew that a woman is a virgin, let's put it this way. They didn't tell you these things, which is very, very wrong. Because when you grow up, you would know more how to behave. But that's how they were narrow-minded. I don't know. My mother was quite maybe when I would be older she would tell me, but she didn't have the opportunity. That's what I can think of only. I wouldn't like to. Do you want me to start the war years, or still would you like to ask me any questions about my childhood?
I think you've covered quite a lot of your childhood. Are there any more recollections? Other dishes your mother used to make?
Oh, it's only
traditional
Polish. Yes, like it had to be chopped fish, gefilte fish, for Shabbos, Friday night, with chicken soup and chicken, and for Saturday the same.
Did she cook on Saturday?
No. She was religious. No, the woman used to come and put a fire. Oh no.
Did she make things like zimmers?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh, Yiddish food, yes, which I never knew how to cook because she never told me. Only I had to experiment myself here in England and throwing a lot of stuff, which I didn't like it because being hungry during the war years, I never throw food away. What I mean is, if I made a bad cake, so I just made pudding out of it. But I wouldn't throw any. I don't even throw a potato. It tastes terrible the next day, but I will not throw it away. I would fry it over or do something, but I will not throw food away. And my children were taught exactly the same. None of them are fussy with the food. I used to pump into them. Mommy was one day very, very hungry and begging not for a piece of bread, for a bit of dirt to eat. And you must eat everything. I was such a bad eater before the war that my father once said to me in Yiddish, "Das der Versündung for a Stickel Brot." Do you understand? You don't understand? Yeah. And he said it, and he told me, and it was true. He said it, and I did. It was a terrible. I never forget his words, because I always remembered afterwards. So I keep saying to my children, really, and they all ate everything. My daughter-in-laws are quite happy that they eat everything. They don't have to be very fussy with their food. And thank God my husband is also not fussy, because he also met with hunger when he was in Russia. He was in Siberia, so he met with hunger as well.
I'm sure. Yes.
And that's it. You know. During when I was going to the high school, I had a crush on a boy. There were two good-looking boys in my class, but one, everybody was running after him. It was Rysiek, forgot his surname, and the other one was Adaś. And I had mostly crush on this Adaś. And funny enough, in the high school, they used to pick up pretty girls, and we used to buy them chocolates during the break. And then I was one of those. Funny enough, yes. And they used to buy me chocolates, which was lovely. But this Rysiek he had an eye on somebody else. This girl is alive. Her name is Stefa. It was Stefa Arendt. And she lives somewhere in Israel now, married to a man called Rappaport. And Rysiek is alive. He lives in America, and he is a doctor. Yes, Rysiek Jakub. Yes. And it was very nice and happy days. What can I say? Which finished, unfortunately, too quickly.
What sort of games did you play with your friends, or did you just dress
Monopoly, and as a very young child, we used to have little shops and sell to each other with dolls, like children play, and post office. We used to have post office. We couldn't buy those things, but collected stamps, made little letters and pens. I used to take my mother's, let's say, I used to play like used to have drugstores separate from a chemist. Chemist was strictly for medicine. So I used to take my mother's bottles from her perfumes. I used to collect them when she had an empty bottle and put it on the dressing table. I had also a dressing table with 3 mirrors, and I used to have this shop and used to selling and buying. And otherwise you play snakes and ladders, Monopoly, and drafts, and reading quite a lot.
You were a serious reader?
Not a reader as to I also had to be careful what I was reading, because school books mostly, because parents were a little bit, and used to belong to the library. Also the organization I used to belong, they used to have a library as well.
The Zionist store?
Yes. And my mother was a very strong Zionist. I told you that my mother's sister was married to a widower, and 2 of his children went to Israel. The sister, one of the daughters, I don't remember her name, she left, must be about 5 years or 6 years before the war, to Palestine. But one of the sons, it was Itzhak, and my mother he was my mother was a Zionist, which did not believe in fighting, but buying up the land. He was I don't know how you call it. He was an organization where you fight for your land. And I remember my mother used to have discussions with him all the time, and then he went to Israel.
This is the second tape in the interview with Barbara Stimler,
taken on the 18th of November 1988 by Jennifer Wingate.
Of September, 10 o'clock. But 7 o'clock they start bombing already our town, as we're living not far from the German border. But we never realized how bad it's going to be. Even with the bombing, my father, when just over the road, wanted to see where the bomb is going to fall. And when the whole town was shaking, he quickly came in. We went to the shelter, and shelter was we didn't have no shelters as such. We went to the cellar, and we went back afterwards. After the planes went back to our. To our place, to our rooms. And then we slept, and the next day the planes came. I don't know, my father was not there. I think I already said that before, didn't I? This experience that they hit our house. And so what we did, we packed up a few things afterwards, and we went out for the day out of town into the fields, because in the fields they were not bombing. There's nothing to bomb, and that's what was going on for another day. And then the oh, wait a minute! Now I remind myself, because when the Germans came, we were not home. So my father wanted to be together with his brother, who was living in Lubraniec with his family. So what we did, I don't remember how we got there. Oh yes, my father bought a cart and a horse. Do you know, I don't remember how we got there. I know we landed up by my uncle's in Lubraniec, and we were together there during the bombing. And when the Germans came, we were in Lubraniec. We were scared stiff. We were just shaking from fear.
Was this the same day, the first day?
No. When they bombed fields, and then my father thought to be together. Wait a minute, because we come back again. State, it's my. Can you switch it off? Before the Germans came, during the bombing, we went to my father's brother, to Lubraniec. And the Germans came, I think 3 or 4 days after the war broke out. I don't remember exactly, but I know soon after bombing the Germans came. And we were in Lubraniec, and the mayor with 2 other representatives from the town hall were greeting the Germans with wine. We didn't see this happening because we were all very scared, and we just shut. My uncle also had a shop, and he shut everything, and we are just sitting there and shivering what's going to happen. And then one of them looked out through the window that everything is okay, and we opened, and the Germans came, and we went back to Aleksandrow. When we went back to Aleksandrow, one of the neighbors who used to come very often to my father, German neighbors, because it was a lot of Germans living in Aleksandrow. He was a butcher, and he came to my father, used to speak politics, and my father said, oh, Poland has Hitler under the shoe, or like under the sole, whatever it's a saying in Polish. And he repeated that after the war, and they came and arrested my father, which was still the end of September or beginning of October. And my grandfather used to deal with raw skins, which he had to buy from the butchers. And one of the butchers, which my grandfather used to deal, my mother knew him very well. He was a German, of course, and my mother went to him and begged him to get my father out. And they got my father out from the jail. And then the next day we saw how they were already evacuating, taking the Jewish people, the poor ones, never holding their beddings in their hands. And you know, they had a lot of children. And so my father said, it's no good. We have to run from here. So that when I know we bought a cart and a horse and packed up whatever we could and went to my father's brother to Lubranitz. And we stayed there. My uncle was a Judenältester. What that means is he used to belong to from the shul, what have they got in the shul, like Gabba and all these?
Well, it's literally the elder of the community.
Yes. And when they needed people to do the work, they used to come to this synagogue, to this... Oh, wait a minute. I forgot to tell you how they burned our shul in Aleksandrow. Oh, I forgot to tell you the fear, the petrifying scare. It was terrible. That was after they arrested my father, and they let him go.
How long was he arrested?
Only 2 nights. That's all. And that was all happening in September, straight as they come in. And then we see suddenly a very big fire, and they were burning the synagogue. That was the first thing what they were doing. I don't know if they were the Poles who were doing, because when the Germans came in, they made Poles, my husband would know the name. If you stop it, I ask him. They used to take the Poles to sign to also join their army, and some of the Poles were willing to do so, and they were collaborating with the Germans. So I don't know if the Germans were burning the synagogue or the Poles, but it was really petrifying. And as I say, the next day they were taking the poor people, evacuating, taking them away. We did not know where and what. So my father got scared, and we bought a cart and horse, and we went to my uncle to Lubranitz. And as I said, he was the Judenältester, one of the Judenältester, and had connections direct to the Germans when they needed people to do the work. How many people here, how many people here, how many people to peel potatoes, how many people to sweep the street, how many people to go on a building site. So they had to take the people. They had to go to the houses and tell them, you have to do this and you have to do this. And we had to do the work for nothing.
Your uncle would organize that?
Yes, there are other people.
Yes.
The other people as well. They had, like a Judenältester, there was probably about 6-7 people.
I see.
And they had to go to the houses and say, you have to do this work today, tomorrow this, and that's how they were doing. Let's say I was sent to peel potatoes. And one day, I was working and peeling potatoes for the soldiers, for the German soldiers. And I come home to my auntie, and now we're staying with them. And they took my father away and mother and sent them back to Aleksandrow.
The Germans did?
The Germans. Because they said all the people who do not belong there, they have to go back, who are not from the same town. It was lucky I was just working. Otherwise, they would take me as well. Can you imagine what I was going through? I didn't want to show this sorrow to my auntie and uncle, I used to go to the toilet, and toilets were there outside, not inside. They were not, they didn't have any canalization there, you see. I used to go there, lock myself in, I was crying bitterly. My uncle was very good to me. Auntie was a little bit sharpish, but uncle was very, very good. And of course, it was his brother. But anyway, Aleksandrov didn't want them. They sent them back again to Lubranitz. There we continue with the work. Just before Christmas in winter, again placards. All the people who do not belong to this town, they come from different towns, they have to leave Lubranitz. You're packing again. And we had a slate with a horse. We hired somebody that time. And my father sent he had a friend in Warsaw. So my mother's jewelry and my mother's furs, whatever was anything to value, he sent to his friend in Warsaw, thinking that we're going to Warsaw. You thought you go to a big town, you may hide a little bit better, you see. That's what he probably was thinking. I don't know what was his thoughts. So it was a terrible journey. And we stopped in a town called Kutno, where we had some friend of mine, which I was going to school with her, and I told you I went once to the church with her and all this. They were living in Kutno. So we went to them. They were Polish. We stayed there. They were very, very good. They gave us their salon and put beds in, and we were sleeping there and eating together and cooking together. And that time we didn't care if it's kosher or not kosher, you just ate what you could. It was already started to be scarce anyway. But this is all 1939, going into 40. We were staying there for about 2-3 weeks, and one of the people came. He says, "Look, they are called Lebiedziński. Lebiedziński. This family was called. The friend was named Krysia. The parents, I don't remember the first names. They came to them and they said, it's no good you keeping the Jewish people. They started to know some Poles don't like it, and you can be persecuted for it. So my father went to town, and I don't know how he got this place. It was just these people were living. When we were living still by this Lebiedziński, my father went to the station to buy tickets to go to Warsaw. And he met somebody who was a train driver who came from Aleksandrow. And he knew us very well. So he told my father, if you want to kill your wife from hunger, and your wife and your daughter, so go to Warsaw. It's very, very bad. So my father we didn't go, and we went back to this, we stayed with this Lebiedziński till these people came and warned them that they might get themselves into trouble. So we went, so my father found a place. They were living over the station. You had to pass through the rails, these Lebiedziński. Just over the other side of the rails was a family called Kronzilber, with Z, who had a grocery shop, and the shop was still open. That was 1940 beginning, and these people in Kutno didn't suffer yet, you see. None actually yet suffered very badly, only in occasional cases. Only we had to leave because I was so living near the border, and we were hit one of the first ones. And they gave us their salon, and we had beds there. And my mother, they were already religious family, we were cooking together. They were older, elderly people, and they had a young daughter, one daughter as well. And this grocery shop was still open, and we used to help in the green grocery shop selling, but of course no school, no nothing. And we were still young, only it was, oh, I forgot to tell you, we had to wear already in Lubraniec. In Aleksandrov already we had to leave the star, yes, straight away as the Germans came, yes, we had to wear the star. We didn't wear the star first. We had in Aleksandrov we had a three-corner one, yellow, only in the back. In Kutno we had to wear here and there, and we used to, in Aleksandrov, walk on the road, not on the pavement anymore. Already in Aleksandrov. And in Kutno was the same. But in Kutno, I was getting a little bit away because nobody knew me. So I didn't bother so much with the star. But of course we also had, which I forgot to tell you, documents, special documents with the Abdruck finger, with the...
Thumbprint?
Oh, yes.
That was special for the Jews?
It's only for the Jews, yes, special papers. I don't remember, we had to go to a special place to get it. Everybody had to go and get it. That was in Kutno. Not in I don't remember in Lubraniec or Aleksandrov, but in Kutno I remember. I remember the place. It's very vaguely, you know. And we had to have like special documents. And
were you asked to show them?
oh yes, on the street, yes, yes,
Quite a lot.
yes, yes. As a Jew, walking on the road, they would ask you. But I was getting a little bit away. I didn't look like a Jewish girl, and I took a little bit of chance to walk on the pavement because the Jewish community was quite big in Kutno. I think there were 11,000 Jewish people there, and we used to meet young people like me, but it was a curfew. I think by 9 or 8 o'clock you had to be back. So although my father was walking backwards and forwards, still I used to come back. But what enjoyment did we have? Nothing. So at least we met, we used to sing and we used to read all sorts of things to each other, you know, aloud, or poems or something like that, just to entertain ourselves. And sometimes we would put a little bit of a music with it, and we used to little dance and all this, not knowing what's waiting for us.
When you went out on the street and walked on the pavement, you left your yellow star.
Of course. But once I had a terrible experience there. Do you want to finish or you want to... No? Yeah. They used to knock in the night and used to turn the place upside down, the Jewish places. And one night they knocked to us. I have been lying in bed with the flu. I had temperature. The time was about 14. Yes, it was about after my birthday. Birthday was in February, 5th of February. I was 14. And Mr. Kronzilber opened the door. We were already in bed. He asked who they are, so they said, I don't know what they said, but only one thing. Our room was the last one. To go through to our room, they had to go through the dining room and their bedroom, Kronzilber's. And the Kronzilber's daughter was sleeping with the mother and the father in separate bed. She, when they heard knocking, she quickly dressed herself and through the back she ran off. And they came right up to our bedroom. And I didn't think to dress because I had this flu and with the temperature came. And my father ran as well, and Mr. Kronzilber. as they came into my room, to our bedroom. And the women, like Mrs. Cronsel and my mother, stayed behind. We didn't have a chance to run, really, because we were in the last room and I was lying in bed. But my father, we always used to beat up the men, so let the men go. But Mrs. Kronsberg also ran. He opened the door, and they straight went into our bedroom through, you see. And they had the chance to run, and we didn't. And my mother ran, I think. Yes. How was it? Or she was in the other room, something. They came in straight into my bedroom. And you know, whatever we had, we tied up into my nightie. Whatever we had, some money and all this. Underneath the nightie, thinking that I'm not well, they won't touch me, you see, because they were rather scared a little bit of any illnesses. But they didn't. I also ran, and they caught me. That's right, I remember now. But they caught me, and they tore my nightie, and all the money never fell on the floor. They were not interested in money. Told me to go to bed. They didn't rape me. It's terrible to tell, but I never talked about it. Oh, now I remember. I remember now, it was not like that. It was not like that. I ran as well. I was already over the train in my nightie, not dressed. It was February or beginning of March. I know it was snow. They caught my mother. They caught my mother. That's right. I also ran. I was running to the Polish people, you see. And they caught my mother and they started to beat her up and told her to call me. My mother said she called me, but she didn't mean me to come back. But I come back. Now I remember. And I come back. And that's what they start doing to me. They left my mother. And my mother started to shout on the street. I forgot to tell you that a man who worked on the trains, a German young man, used to come to the shop, and he liked me. So he says after the war he will take me. He didn't know we were Jewish or not, whatever. You see, they used to come to the shop. They didn't know who we were. And my mother was shouting on the street, and he just come from work. He had night shift, and my mother told him that there is an SS man there with a civilian, and they're doing something to my daughter. So he came. He says, you go back. He told her to go back, and he called the police because it was Rassenschande, you know that. Rassenschande means you mustn't have anything with a Jewish woman. You know what I mean. And so I'm lying naked, and I had my mind still. We used to have muffs, you know. Yes. And my identification paper was in the muff, so I undone the zip. And I showed them that I'm only 14, I'm only a youngster. You know, they start mucking about. I'm not going into it. And suddenly my mother comes, and she takes a knife, and she wants to kill him. So I said, no, Mom, don't. They didn't do nothing. I mean, they didn't rape me as such. They didn't do nothing. And then they could hear through the shop German voices, because the police came, you see.
So the German boy had called them?
Yes, the police came, and when they heard German voices, they just left the room and they went off, you see. And what happened then, I don't know, and I didn't want to know, but I was very, very ill. And my father was already afraid I should stay there because, you see, the pub was not far. And somebody maybe said, oh, there are 2 Jewesses there, go, you see, or whatever, to women or whatever they told them, I don't know.
So these were Polish people then who'd done this to you?
No, Germans.
It was the Gestapo?
Assessment, yes, an assessment and a civilian. I don't know who he was, the civilian. I don't know. One civilian and one assessment.
But they still ran off when they heard the German...
Yes, yeah, they spoke to them something. And they went off. The German won't do nothing to... I don't know if they went together or whatever was done, I don't know. But at least they left me alone, because it could be terrible circumstances, you see. But the fear, I can't tell you what I went through. But I was very ill for 6 weeks. I was running very high temperature, and I was not staying in the cousin, who is now in America, his parents and his sister was there as well, living in the same town, but quite further away. And I stayed with them for 6 weeks till I got myself better. And come back home.
So you weren't with your mother when you stayed?
No. And I didn't see them for 6 weeks. It was too far to walk, you see. They had to wear the stars to go. They would be afraid to go without stars. It was too dangerous.
You must have been very frightened.
Oh, terrible. You can imagine.
Yes.
But I suppose that is nothing what I went through more. Then we stayed with these Kronzilbers. And I mean, I didn't go out anymore. I was already ill. I was frightened. I was scared stiff. And in May, beginning of May, they took the richest people from Kutno, 1,000 people. And these Kronzilbers were also casted as rich people. They took them, and they took us, put us in a sugar factory, first they put us, in a tobacco factory, which was not in use since before the war. And they put us like pigs on straw. And every day the assessments were coming a few times a day. They putting soap somewhere or something there, and they said it's missing. Another one went, didn't come back, and that's how they're doing to us for 2 weeks. One day they come, called my father up. My father was a biggish man. We heard a shot. They had to undress himself. He had to put film on. And then throw him out. And they were kicking back to us. Then they took one man, a jeweler, because some German soldier left a watch or something to be repaired, I don't know what. And they wanted from him while they took him away like that. And he couldn't give them because they took him away. So they killed him in front of everybody. It was terrible then. They kept us like that for 2 weeks, I think. And they took all the people from Kutno and put in a sugar factory, which was not in use also since before the war. The other people from the town, they could take all the things with them, whatever they could, some furniture. We didn't have anything anymore. We went there, bare floors. When the rain was, it was so much water, we had to stand on someone else's tables. Some people gave us some beds and bedding. It was the most terrible experience I was going through there. Auschwitz was nothing.
People were starving from hunger there. They were throwing bread over the fences. It was terrible. And my uncle with his 5 sons was there as well. And this cousin who is in Syria